The last note of music hung in the air like a whisper that refused to die. Carnegie Hall sat in perfect silence for 3 long seconds, then the crowd exploded. 2,000 people jumped to their feet. They clapped so hard their hands hurt. They shouted and cheered until their voices cracked. Marcus Chun stood at the beautiful black piano. Sweat dripped down his face. His heart beat fast from the music he had just played. The bright stage lights made everything look like a dream. He smiled and bowed low. The crowd loved him. They always did. Bravo, bravo. People shouted from every corner of the huge hall. Some threw flowers onto the stage. Others wiped tears from their eyes. Marcus had played Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2. It was one of the hardest pieces ever written, but Marcus made it sound easy. He made it sound like angels singing. Marcus bowed again and again. Each time he stood up, the crowd clapped louder. He looked out at all the faces. Rich people in expensive clothes sat in the front rows. They paid hundreds of dollars for their seats. In the back, music students squeezed together in cheaper seats. They saved money for months just to hear him play. The concert hall was like a palace. Red velvet seats stretched up to the ceiling in perfect curves. Golden lights sparkled like stars. The walls were painted with beautiful designs. Everything looked rich and important. This was where the world's best musicians came to play. Tonight, Marcus was one of them. After 20 minutes of clapping, the crowd slowly began to leave. People talked excitedly as they walked up the aisles. "Did you hear that part in the second movement?" One woman asked her husband. "I've never heard anything so beautiful," he replied. Marcus waved one last time and walked off the stage. His manager, David, waited for him with a big smile. "Another perfect show," David said, patting Marcus on the back. "The critics loved it. The audience loved it. You're going to be in all the newspapers tomorrow." But Marcus felt tired, very tired. Playing music like this took everything out of him. He gave his whole heart and soul to every note. When the music stopped, he felt empty, like a phone with no battery left. "I need some air," Marcus told David. "I'll be back in a few minutes." "Don't take too long," David said. "We have that interview with the Times in 30 minutes. Marcus nodded but didn't really listen. He walked back onto the empty stage. The crowd was gone now. The hall looked different without all those people. Bigger, lonelier, more like a church than a party. He sat down on the piano bench again. The keys were still warm from his fingers. This piano was special. It was a Steinway Model D grand piano. It cost more than most people's houses. The wood was so shiny he could see his face in it. Every key was perfect. Every note sang like a bird. Marcus touched one key very softly. A gentle note floated through the empty hall. It sounded sad and lonely now. During the concert, the same note had sounded powerful and full of life. Funny how the same music could feel so different. He heard footsteps in the hall, not the quick steps of people leaving. These were slow, careful steps, working steps. Marcus looked up and saw them coming. The cleaning crew, they came every night after the concerts ended, like clockwork. Marcus had seen them before, but he never really looked at them. They were part of the background, like the chairs and the lights. Always there, but not really important. Tonight was different. Maybe because he was so tired, maybe because the music had opened his heart. For the first time, Marcus really saw them. There were 5 people, 3 men and 2 women. They all wore the same blue uniforms. They carried mops and buckets and garbage bags. The crew split up to cover the huge hall. One man started picking up programs that people had dropped. Another began sweeping the aisles. One woman cleaned the seats where people had spilled drinks, but Marcus's eyes followed one woman in particular. She was older than the others, maybe 50 or 60 years old. Her hair was gray and pulled back in a simple ponytail. She was small and thin, but she moved with purpose. Like she knew exactly what she was doing. Her name tag said Elena. She walked straight toward the stage, toward the piano where Marcus still sat. "Excuse me, sir," Elena said in a soft voice. She had an accent, Spanish maybe. "I need to clean around the piano." "Of course," Marcus said, starting to get up. No. Elena said quickly. You don't have to move. I can work around you. Marcus stayed on the bench and watched Elena work. She was different from the other cleaners. They worked fast, trying to finish quickly so they could go home, but Elena took her time. She was careful with everything. She started by picking up the flowers that people had thrown onto the stage. She didn't just grab them and stuff them in her garbage bag. She looked at each one. She smelled a few of the roses. She even smiled at a bouquet of yellow daisies. Beautiful flowers, she said to Marcus. People must have loved your music very much. Thank you, Marcus replied. He was surprised. Most of the cleaning people never talked to him. Elena moved closer to the piano. She pulled out a special cloth from her bucket. It wasn't the rough towels the other cleaners used. This cloth was soft and gentle. She began to clean the piano very carefully. Marcus watched her dust each key, one by one, like they were precious jewels. She cleaned the music stand where his sheet music had been. She polished the pedals until they shined. She even cleaned underneath the piano where nobody could see. You take good care of the piano, Marcus said. Elena stopped cleaning and looked at him. Her eyes were kind but sad. This piano is special, she said. It makes beautiful music. Beautiful things should be treated with respect, Marcus nodded. He had never thought about it that way. To him, the piano was just a tool, like a hammer or a paintbrush, something to use to make his art. But Elena saw it differently. She saw it as something alive, something that deserved love and care. Elena continued cleaning. She worked around Marcus like he wasn't even there, but he could tell she was being extra careful not to disturb him. When she needed to clean the keys, she waited until his hands were not touching them. The other cleaners finished their work and started to leave. Elena, one of them called. We're going. Are you coming? In a few minutes, Elena called back. I'm almost done here. Now it was just Marcus and Elena in the huge empty hall. The silence felt different with her there. Not lonely anymore, peaceful. Elena finished cleaning the outside of the piano. She put her cloth back in her bucket. But she didn't leave. She stood there looking at the piano keys. Her hand reached out like she wanted to touch them. Then she pulled it back. Marcus saw the look on her face. It was the same look he had when he saw a beautiful piano for the first time. The look of someone who understood music. Someone who loved it. That's when Marcus got an idea, a crazy idea. But maybe not so crazy after all. Marcus felt like he had run a marathon. His whole body was tired, but his mind was still flying high from the music. This always happened after a big concert. The music filled him up like air in a balloon. Then, when it ended, he felt empty and strange. He looked at his hands. They were shaking a little. Not from being nervous, from being tired. Those hands had just played over 1,000 notes without making a single mistake. Every finger had to move at exactly the right time. Every muscle had to work perfectly together. Playing Rachmaninoff was like climbing a mountain. The music was so hard that even famous pianists sometimes made mistakes. But Marcus had played it perfectly tonight. The audience felt it. They knew they had heard something special. Marcus wiped the sweat from his face with his white handkerchief. Under the bright stage lights, he always got very hot. The lights were necessary so people could see him from the back rows. But they made the stage feel like an oven. He looked out at the empty seats. Just 30 minutes ago, every seat was filled. People had traveled from all over the world to hear him play. Some came from Japan, others from Germany or France. Music brought people together like nothing else could. The red velvet seats looked like sleeping giants in the dim light. Each seat had its own story tonight. In seat A14, an old man had cried during the slow movement. The music reminded him of his wife who died last year. In seat M23, a young girl heard classical music for the first time. She would remember this night forever. Marcus stood up from the piano bench. His legs felt wobbly. He had been sitting in the same position for almost 2 hours. First during rehearsal with the orchestra, then during the concert. His back was sore. He walked to the edge of the stage and looked down into the orchestra pit. The musicians had packed up their instruments and gone home. Their music stands were empty, but Marcus could still hear their sounds in his memory. The violins singing together, the trumpets calling out like golden birds, the drums rolling like thunder. Working with an orchestra was like being part of a big family. Every musician had to listen to everyone else. They had to breathe together, feel the music together. When it worked perfectly, like tonight, it was magic, but now Marcus was alone. This was the hardest part of being a famous musician. After all the excitement, after all the people and noise and lights, he was always alone. His hotel room would be quiet and empty. No music, no audience. Just silence. Marcus heard Elena working behind him. She was still cleaning the piano area. But she was being very quiet. Like she knew he needed peace. He turned around to watch her. Elena moved like a dancer. Every step was careful and graceful. She didn't rush or make noise. She seemed to understand that this stage was a special place. Elena was cleaning the piano bench now. The same bench where Marcus had just created magic. She treated it like it was made of gold. Her cloth moved in small, gentle circles. She was making sure every inch was perfect. Marcus noticed something strange. Elena's eyes kept looking at the piano keys, not just glancing, really looking. Like she was reading something written there. Like the keys were telling her a story. Most people looked at a piano and saw black and white keys, 88 keys total. But Elena looked deeper, Marcus could tell. She saw music waiting to come alive. She saw possibilities. "You've been cleaning here for a long time?" Marcus asked. Elena looked up, surprised. She probably wasn't used to the performers talking to her. 12 years, she said. "Since 2012? That's a long time," Marcus said. "You must have heard a lot of good music." Elena smiled. It was a sad smile, but also happy. "Oh yes, so much beautiful music. I hear everything while I work. Beethoven, Mozart, Chopin, all the masters." Marcus was surprised. Elena knew the composers' names. Most cleaning people didn't know classical music. They might recognize a famous song, but they wouldn't know who wrote it. "Do you have a favorite?" Marcus asked. Elena stopped cleaning. She thought for a moment. "Chopin," she said finally. "His music speaks to the heart, not just to the head." Marcus felt his eyebrows go up. Elena had just said something very smart about music. Chopin's music was indeed more emotional than technical. It came from the heart, like Elena said. "You know music?" Marcus said. It wasn't a question. Elena looked down at her cleaning cloth. "I know a little," she said softly, but Marcus could tell she was being modest. "You don't learn about Chopin from just hearing concerts. You learn about Chopin from studying music, from really understanding it." Elena went back to her cleaning. But now Marcus was really interested. He stayed on the stage instead of going to his dressing room. He wanted to watch Elena more. Elena moved to clean the area around the piano pedals. There are 3 pedals on a grand piano. Each one changes the sound in a different way. Most people don't even notice them. But Elena cleaned each pedal carefully. Like she knew exactly what they did. Marcus was getting more curious by the minute. Elena wasn't just a cleaning lady who happened to work in a concert hall. She understood this place. She understood the music. "Elena," Marcus said, "have you ever studied music?" Elena's hand stopped moving. She didn't look up. For a long moment she didn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was very quiet. "A long time ago," she said, "in my country, before I came here." Marcus wanted to ask more questions, but something in Elena's voice told him to be careful. There was pain there. Old pain that still hurt. Elena finished cleaning around the pedals. She stood up slowly. Marcus could tell her knees hurt. Cleaning was hard work, especially for someone her age. "Where are you from?" Marcus asked gently. "El Salvador," Elena said. "Central America?" Marcus nodded. He had played concerts all over the world. He knew that El Salvador had gone through hard times, wars, and poverty. Many people had to leave their home country to find better lives. Elena looked at the piano one more time. Her eyes were full of something Marcus couldn't quite understand. Love, sadness, longing, maybe all three. It's a beautiful instrument, Elena said. A 1925 Steinway Model D, one of the finest pianos ever made. Marcus's mouth fell open. Elena had just told him the exact model and year of the piano. Information that only piano experts would know. This wasn't just someone who liked music. This was someone who really, truly understood pianos. How did you know that? Marcus asked. Elena looked scared, like she had said too much. I read it somewhere, she said quickly. On a sign, maybe. But Marcus knew there was no sign with that information. Elena had known it from experience, from years of studying. Pianos and music. Elena picked up her bucket and started to walk away. I should go, she said. The others are waiting for me. Wait, Marcus said. But Elena was already walking toward the exit. Marcus watched her go. Her small figure disappeared into the shadows at the back of the hall. But his mind was racing with questions. Who was Elena, really? Why did she know so much about music? What had happened in El Salvador that brought her here to clean floors instead of ... what? Playing music? Marcus looked at the piano. The same piano Elena had just cleaned with such love and care. Suddenly he had a wild idea. A completely crazy idea, but maybe crazy ideas were exactly what this moment needed. Marcus sat alone on the stage for several minutes after Elena walked away. The empty concert hall felt huge around him. His mind kept going back to Elena's words about the piano. How did she know it was a 1925 Steinway Model D? That was very specific information. Not something you learn by accident. The more Marcus thought about it, the more curious he became. In all his years of performing, he had never met a cleaning person who knew classical composers, or who could identify expensive pianos by sight. There was definitely more to Elena's story. Marcus made a decision. He got up from the piano bench and walked quickly toward the exit. He needed to find Elena before she left the building. He had to know more about her. The backstage area was dimly lit. Marcus could hear voices echoing from somewhere down the hall. He followed the sounds and found himself in a service corridor he had never seen before. This was where the working people of Carnegie Hall spent their time. Not the glamorous part that audiences saw. Marcus found Elena and the other cleaning crew members in a small break room. They were putting away their supplies and getting ready to leave. Elena was washing her hands at a tiny sink in the corner. Elena, Marcus called out. Everyone in the room turned around. They looked shocked to see the famous pianist in their break room. The other cleaners stared at Marcus like he was a movie star who had just walked into their living room. Mr. Chung, Elena said, drying her hands on a paper towel. Is something wrong? Did I forget to clean something? No, Marcus said quickly. Everything was perfect. I wanted to talk to you. The other cleaners looked at each other with confused expressions. Why would a world-famous musician want to talk to Elena? They gathered their things and quietly left the room. Soon it was just Marcus and Elena. I've been thinking about what you said, Marcus began. About the piano, about Chopin. You know a lot about music. Elena looked down at the floor. I just listen while I work, she said. You learn things. But you knew the exact model of the piano, Marcus said. That's not something you learn just by listening. Elena shifted uncomfortably. She clearly didn't want to talk about this. But Marcus could see something in her eyes. A spark, like a fire that was almost out but still had some heat left. Marcus felt the excitement building in his chest. The same excitement he felt when he discovered a new piece of music to learn. There was a mystery here, and he wanted to solve it. Elena, Marcus said, his voice getting more animated, I have an idea. A crazy idea. Elena looked up at him with worried eyes. What kind of idea? Marcus grinned. He was still high from the energy of the concert. His brain was working fast, making connections, seeing possibilities. This was how he felt when he was composing music or learning a difficult piece. Come back to the stage with me, Marcus said. I can't, Elena said quickly. I'm not supposed to be on the stage. Only performers and staff are allowed. I'm inviting you, Marcus said. I'm the performer tonight. That makes you my guest. Elena looked scared and excited at the same time. But why? Marcus thought about how to explain it. How could he tell her that something about her made him curious? That in all his years of performing, he had never met anyone who cleaned a piano the way she did. That her knowledge of music intrigued him? You said you studied music in El Salvador, Marcus said. I want to know more about that. Elena's face changed. The fear became stronger than the excitement. That was a long time ago, she said. I don't want to talk about it. Then don't talk, Marcus said. His idea was becoming clearer now. Show me. Show you what? Marcus felt his heart beating faster. This was either going to be brilliant or completely embarrassing. But something told him to take the chance. The piano, Marcus said. You treat it like you understand it. Like you have a relationship with it. I want to see that relationship. Elena took a step backward. I don't understand. Play it, Marcus said simply. Elena's eyes went wide. What? Play the piano, Marcus repeated. I want to hear you play. Elena started shaking her head immediately. No, I can't. I'm not no. But Marcus could see something else in her reaction. It wasn't just fear. There was longing there too. Like part of her wanted to say yes. Why not? Marcus asked gently. Because I'm the cleaning lady, Elena said. I clean. I don't perform. So what? Marcus said, his excitement growing. Tonight you're not the cleaning lady. Tonight you're my guest, and I'm asking my guest to play piano with me. Elena looked around the small break room like she was looking for an escape. I can't, she whispered. Can't or won't? Marcus asked. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Marcus could see her thinking, fighting with herself. I haven't played in years, Elena finally said. Marcus felt his heart jump. She said, haven't played, not don't play. That meant she used to play. He was right. There was more to Elena's story. How many years? Marcus asked. Elena closed her eyes. 20, she said softly. Maybe more. That's okay, Marcus said. Music is like riding a bicycle. You never really forget. Elena opened her eyes and looked at Marcus. Why does this matter to you? Marcus thought about the question. Why did it matter? He had just given the performance of his life. He should be celebrating with champagne and interviews. Instead, he was in a break room trying to convince a cleaning lady to play piano. Because, Marcus said slowly, I've been playing professionally for 15 years. I've met thousands of musicians. But I've never met anyone who cleans a piano the way you do, with such respect, such love. I want to understand why. Elena was quiet again. Marcus could see her mind working. She was considering it. Actually, considering it. The stage is empty now, Marcus continued. No audience, no pressure, just you, me, and the piano. What could it hurt? Elena laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. You don't understand, she said. Playing piano, It's not just playing for me, it's single quotes s complicated. Everything important is complicated, Marcus said. That's what makes it worth doing. Elena looked at Marcus for a long time. She was studying his face, trying to decide if she could trust him. If I do this, Elena said slowly, and I make a fool of myself, will you promise not to tell anyone? Marcus felt a rush of victory. She was going to do it. I promise, he said, and if I can't do it, if I try and fail, you won't think less of me? Elena, Marcus said seriously, I could never think less of someone who has the courage to try something that scares them. Elena took a deep breath. Okay, she said. But just for a few minutes, and then I have to go home. My family will worry. Marcus smiled so wide his face hurt. Just a few minutes, he agreed. They walked back through the corridors toward the stage. Marcus felt like a child on Christmas morning. He had no idea what was about to happen, but he knew it was going to be special. As they reached the stage, Elena stopped walking. She stood at the edge of the stage looking out at all the empty seats. The piano sat in the middle of the stage under a single spotlight. I can't believe I'm doing this, Elena whispered. Neither can I, Marcus said. But sometimes the best things happen when we do things we can't believe we're doing. Elena nodded slowly. Then she stepped onto the stage where, just hours before, Marcus had moved 2,000 people to tears. Now it was time to see what kind of magic Elena could make. Elena stood at the edge of the stage like she was standing at the edge of a cliff. Her feet wouldn't move forward. The piano seemed very far away. Even though it was only 20 steps across the stage, the concert hall was completely silent now. No audience, no orchestra, no other people at all. Just Elena, Marcus, and the giant Steinway piano waiting under the spotlight. The silence felt heavy, like it was pressing down on Elena's shoulders. Elena's hands were shaking. She looked down at them and tried to make them stop, but they wouldn't listen. These hands had cleaned thousands of floors, washed millions of dishes, scrubbed countless toilets. Could they still make music? It seemed impossible. Take your time, Marcus said gently. He could see how scared Elena was. There's no rush. Elena nodded but still didn't move. She was thinking about the last time she had played piano. It was 1998. She was 28 years old. The war in El Salvador was finally ending, but everything was destroyed. Her music school was bombed. Her piano teacher had fled to America. Her own piano, the one her grandmother had saved money to buy, was stolen by soldiers. That day in 1998, Elena had played at a refugee camp. Someone had found an old, broken piano with half the keys missing. Elena played what she could on the working keys. She played for children who hadn't heard music in years. She played for mothers who had lost their sons. She played for fathers who had lost their hope. After that day, Elena promised herself she would never play again. Music was too beautiful for such an ugly world. It hurt too much to create something lovely when everything around her was falling. Apart. Now, standing on this stage, Elena felt all those old feelings coming back. The fear, the sadness, the loss. But also something else, something she had buried for 25 years. The hunger for music, the need to create something beautiful. I don't know if I remember how, Elena whispered. You remember, Marcus said. I can see it in the way you look at the piano. I can see it in the way you touch the keys when you clean them. Elena looked at Marcus. You notice that? I notice everything about music, Marcus said. It's my job. And you don't clean those keys like someone who doesn't understand them. You clean them like someone who loves them. Elena felt tears starting in her eyes. She had thought she was invisible all these years. Just another cleaning lady that nobody saw or cared about, but Marcus had seen her. He had understood something about her that she thought was hidden forever. Elena took one small step forward, then another. The piano was getting closer, but it still seemed like a mountain she had to climb. What if I disappoint you? Elena asked. What if you don't? Marcus replied. Elena took a few more steps. Now she was close enough to see her reflection in the shiny black surface of the piano. She looked older than she remembered. Gray hair, lines around her eyes, hands that showed the wear of hard work. This wasn't the young woman who used to play piano in El Salvador. This was someone different. Someone who had survived things that young woman never could have imagined. Elena reached out one finger and touched. A single key, middle C the note, rang out clear and pure in the empty hall. It sounded exactly the same as it had 25 years ago. Music didn't change. People changed, the world changed, but music stayed the same. The sound of that single note did something to Elena's heart. It was like a door opening after being locked for decades. She touched another key, then another. Each note was like greeting. An old friend she hadn't seen in years. It's still there, Elena said with wonder in her voice. What's still there? Marcus asked. The music, Elena said. Inside me. I thought it was gone, but it's still there. Elena walked around to the front of the piano bench. This was the moment of truth. Sitting down would mean accepting Marcus's challenge. It would mean admitting that she was more than just a cleaning lady. It would mean opening up parts of herself that she had kept locked away for protection. Elena looked out at the empty seats. In her mind, she could see all the people who had sat there tonight. Rich people, poor people, young people, old people, all of them united by their love of music. Music didn't care about your job or your clothes or your accent. Music only cared about your heart. My grandmother taught me to play, Elena said suddenly. She said music was the language that God used to speak to people. She said every time we played piano, we were having a conversation with heaven. Marcus smiled. I like that. She saved for 3 years to buy our piano, Elena continued. She worked extra jobs, skipped meals, patched her clothes instead of buying new ones. When the piano finally arrived, she cried for an hour. Elena sat down on the bench. The height was perfect, like the bench had been waiting for her all this time. She looked down at the keys. 88 keys, just like always, some black, some white. All of them waiting to sing. What happened to your grandmother? Marcus asked. Softly, she died when I was 15, Elena said. But before she died, she made me promise something. She made me promise to never let the music die inside me. Even when life got hard, even when the world seemed hopeless, I had to keep the music alive. Elena placed her hands on the keys but didn't press them yet. I broke that promise, she said. When I came to America, I thought I had to leave everything behind. My language, my culture, my music. I thought I had to become someone completely new. But you didn't leave it behind, Marcus said. I can see it in the way you work. You bring love and care to everything you do. That's music, even if you're not playing piano. Elena looked at Marcus with surprise. She had never thought about it that way. But maybe he was right. Maybe music wasn't just about playing instruments. Maybe music was about bringing beauty and care to the world, no matter what job you did. Elena closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She tried to remember what it felt like to play. Not the technical parts, where to put her fingers, how to read notes. The feeling part. The part where the music flowed from her heart, through her hands into the world. She thought about her grandmother's weathered hands teaching her first scales. She thought about playing lullabies for her little brother. She thought about the day she graduated from music school and felt like she could fly, slowly. Elena placed her fingers on the keys in the position for C major scale, the most basic thing every piano student learns. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. The foundation of all. Music. I used to dream about playing on a stage like this, Elena whispered. When I was young, I thought I would be a concert pianist. I thought I would travel the world and play for thousands of people. You're here now, Marcus said. Maybe not the way you planned, but you're here. Elena opened her eyes and looked at the keys under her fingers. Such a simple thing, pressing down on pieces of wood and metal to make sound, but also the most complicated thing in the world, because the sound that came out wasn't just noise, it was emotion, it was story. It was the language of the heart. I'm scared, Elena admitted. I know, Marcus said. But fear and excitement often feel the same. Sometimes the only difference is how you choose to think about it. Elena nodded. She understood what Marcus meant. Right now, her heart was beating fast, her hands were shaking, her stomach felt nervous. But was that fear or excitement? Maybe it was both. Elena pressed down on the first key, C. The note filled the concert hall like a drop of water in a still pond. It was just one note, but it was perfect. Clear and strong and true. She was ready to begin. Elena's fingers found their way to the keys like they were coming home after a long journey. She started with simple scales, letting her hands remember the feel of the piano. The notes were gentle at first, uncertain, like someone learning to walk again after being in bed for months. But something magical began to happen. With each note, Elena's confidence grew. Her fingers became steadier. Her touch became surer. The music that had been sleeping inside her for 25 years was waking up. Marcus sat in the first row, watching carefully. He could see the change happening in Elena. Her shoulders relaxed. Her breathing became deeper. The scared cleaning lady was transforming into someone else. Someone who belonged at this piano. After a few minutes of scales and simple exercises, Elena paused. She sat quietly with her hands resting on the keys. Marcus could see her thinking, deciding what to play next. "There's a piece," Elena said softly. Not looking at Marcus. "I used to play it for my daughter when she was little, when she couldn't sleep." "Play it," Marcus said. Elena nodded slowly. She placed her hands in position and began to play Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. The same composer she had said was her favorite when Marcus asked earlier. The first notes were hesitant. Elena's fingers stumbled once or twice, like she was finding her way in the dark. But then something extraordinary happened. The music began to flow. Marcus felt his breath catch in his throat. This wasn't the playing of someone who had learned piano as a hobby. This was the playing of someone who had studied seriously. Someone who understood music from the inside out. Elena's left hand played the gentle, rolling bass line while her right hand sang the beautiful melody. The music filled the concert hall with warmth and sadness and hope all mixed together. It was like listening to someone tell a story about their whole life in musical notes. But Marcus noticed something even more amazing. Elena wasn't just playing the notes correctly. She was interpreting them. She was adding her own feelings and experiences to Chopin's music. This was what separated good musicians from great musicians. The ability to make classical music personal and alive. Elena's fingers danced across the keys with growing confidence. 25 years fell away like they had never happened. She wasn't a tired cleaning lady anymore. She was a musician. A real musician. Marcus leaned forward in his seat. His heart was pounding. What he was hearing was impossible. Cleaning ladies didn't play like this. People who worked night shifts mopping floors didn't have this kind of musical education. But Elena was proving him wrong with every note. The middle section of the Nocturne required technical skill that took years to develop. Rapid runs of notes, delicate touches, perfect timing. Elena played it all flawlessly. Her hands moved like water flowing over rocks. Smooth, natural, effortless. Marcus felt goosebumps rising on his arms. He had heard this piece played by some of the world's best pianists. Elena's version was as good as any of them. Maybe better because it came from such a deep, honest place. Elena's face had changed completely. The worry lines were gone. Her eyes were closed, but she was smiling slightly. She looked peaceful, like she was exactly where she belonged. This was what she was born to do. As the music continued, Marcus realized he was witnessing something incredibly rare. He was hearing someone's true voice for the first time in decades. Elena had hidden this talent, buried it, pretended it didn't exist. But music this powerful couldn't stay buried forever. The Nocturne reached its most beautiful section. The melody soared high above the bass line like a bird flying over mountains. Elena's right hand sang with such expression that Marcus felt tears starting in his eyes. He had played this piece himself many times, but he had never heard it played with such pure emotion. Elena's technique was flawless, but that wasn't what moved Marcus. It was the feeling behind the technique. Every note carried weight. Every phrase told part of a story. The story of a woman who had lost everything but somehow found the strength to keep going. Marcus looked around the empty concert hall. The same hall where he had performed earlier that evening for 2,000 people. But this felt more intimate, more powerful than his earlier performance. This was music at its most honest. Music with nothing to prove and nothing to hide. Elena played the final phrases of the Nocturne with such tenderness that Marcus forgot to breathe. The last note hung in the air like a prayer, slowly fading into silence. Elena kept her hands on the keys for a moment after the music ended. Then she opened her eyes and looked at Marcus. Tears were streaming down her face, but she was still smiling. "I had forgotten," Elena whispered. "I had forgotten how it felt." Marcus couldn't speak. He was too shocked, too moved, too amazed by what he had just heard. This wasn't just someone who had taken piano lessons as a child. This was someone who had devoted years of serious study to music. Someone who had real talent. Incredible talent. "Elena," Marcus finally managed to say, "where did you learn to play like that?" Elena wiped the tears from her cheeks with the back of her hand. "The National Conservatory in San Salvador," she said quietly. "I studied there for 8 years. Marcus felt like he had been struck by lightning. The National Conservatory was one of the most prestigious music schools in Central America. Only the most talented students were accepted. Only the best of the best graduated. "You were a professional musician?" Marcus said. It wasn't a question, Elena nodded. I was going to be. I had a scholarship to continue my studies in Europe, in Vienna. Everything was arranged. What happened? Marcus asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. Elena's smile faded. The war got worse. The conservatory was bombed. My teacher was killed. My family had to flee the country. We came here with nothing. No papers, no money, no proof of my education. In America, I wasn't a trained musician. I was just another immigrant who needed any job she could find. Marcus felt his heart breaking. Here was someone with extraordinary talent, someone who should have been playing in concert halls around the world. Instead, she had spent 25 years cleaning those same concert halls, watching other people live the life she had lost. Why? Didn't you try to get back into music? Marcus asked. Even here in America, someone with your talent could have found opportunities. Elena shook her head. You don't understand how it was. We were illegal immigrants for many years. I couldn't take risks. I had a daughter to feed, a family to support. Cleaning jobs paid money immediately. Music was uncertain, and after so many years away from it, I convinced myself I wasn't good enough anymore. But you are good enough, Marcus said urgently. What I just heard was extraordinary. You're better than most of the pianists I know professionally. Elena looked surprised. Really? Really, Marcus said firmly. Elena, you have a gift. A rare, beautiful gift. It's not too late to use it. Elena stood up from the piano bench. I'm 58 years old, she said. I clean floors for a living. Nobody wants to hear an old cleaning lady play piano. I do, Marcus said, and I think a lot of other people would too. Elena looked at the piano, then at Marcus, then out at the empty seats. Marcus could see her mind working, considering possibilities. She had given up on long ago. It's been so long, Elena said. I don't know if I could do it, really do it, perform for people. You just did, Marcus pointed out. You just gave me one of the most beautiful performances I've ever heard. Elena sat back down on the bench, but this time she turned to face Marcus instead of the piano. What are you suggesting? Marcus felt excitement building in his chest. An idea was forming, a crazy, wonderful idea. I'm suggesting, Marcus said slowly, that maybe it's time for the world to hear Elena Rodriguez play piano. Marcus stood up from his seat and began pacing excitedly across the stage. His mind was racing with possibilities. Elena watched him with a mixture of hope and fear in her eyes. I have an idea, Marcus said, his voice full of energy. But I need you to trust me. What kind of idea? Elena asked carefully. Marcus stopped pacing and looked directly at Elena. In 3 weeks, I'm performing at a small venue in the city. It's called the Merkin Concert Hall, much smaller than this place, more intimate. I'm doing a program of Chopin pieces. Elena nodded, listening. What if, Marcus continued, you performed with me that night? Elena's eyes went wide. What? No. Absolutely not. I couldn't. Why not? Marcus asked. You just proved you can play at a professional level. I heard it myself. Playing alone on an empty stage is different from performing in front of people, Elena said, panic rising in her voice. You're right, Marcus agreed. But Elena, extraordinary things require taking extraordinary risks, and you are extraordinary. Elena stood up from the piano bench and began backing away. Marcus, you're very kind, but this is crazy. I can't just suddenly become a concert pianist. I haven't performed for an audience in 25 years. Then maybe it's time, Marcus said gently. What would people think? Elena asked, a cleaning lady suddenly claiming to be a musician? They would laugh? Let them laugh, Marcus said. Anyone who would laugh at what I just heard doesn't understand music anyway. Elena shook her head. You don't understand the risk. I have a job here. I have responsibilities. If this goes wrong, if people think I'm trying to be something I'm not, I could lose everything. Marcus walked closer to Elena. What if it goes right? What if people hear what I heard tonight and realize they're witnessing something special? And what if they don't? Elena countered. Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking, Elena, can I ask you something personal? Elena nodded. Double quotes. Do you have regrets about the path your life took? Elena's face crumpled slightly. Every day, she whispered. Then, this is your chance to change that, Marcus said. Maybe not to get back the life you lost, but to create a new life. A life that includes music. Elena walked to the edge of the stage and looked out at the empty seats again. Marcus could see her internal struggle. Part of her wanted to say yes. Part of her was terrified. I have a daughter, Elena said finally. She's 23 now. In college studying to be a teacher. She doesn't even know I used to play piano. Seriously. I told her I took some lessons as a child, but nothing more. Why? Marcus asked. Because I didn't want her to see me as a failure, Elena said. I didn't want her to know that her mother once had dreams and lost them. I wanted her to see me as strong, not as someone who gave up. Marcus felt his heart break a little. Elena, you didn't give up, you survived. You sacrificed your dreams to take care of your family. That's not failure, that's heroism. Tears started flowing down Elena's cheeks again. I've spent so many years trying to forget what I used to want. Trying to be happy with what I have. Are you happy? Marcus asked softly. Elena was quiet for a long time. I'm grateful, she said finally. But happy? I don't know if I remember what that feels like. Marcus walked over to Elena and stood beside her at the edge of the stage. Music used to make you happy, didn't it? Elena nodded, not trusting her voice. It still can, Marcus said. It's not too late. Elena wiped her tears with her sleeve. But what if I'm not good enough anymore? What if 25 years of cleaning floors has made me forget how to be a musician? Elena, Marcus said, I've been playing professionally for 15 years. I've worked with some of the most talented musicians in the world. What I heard tonight was as good as anything I've ever heard. Maybe better because it came from such a real place. Elena looked at Marcus searchingly. You really mean that? I swear to you, Marcus said. I would never risk my reputation by inviting someone to perform with me unless I believed in their talent completely. Elena was quiet again, thinking. Marcus could see the battle going on inside her mind. If I did this, Elena said slowly, and it went badly, at least I would know I tried. At least I wouldn't spend the rest of my life wondering what if, and if it goes well? Marcus asked. Elena's face lit up slightly. If it goes well, maybe I could start teaching again. Maybe I could play at small venues. Maybe I could remember what it feels like to be Elena the musician instead of just Elena the cleaning lady. You're both, Marcus said. You're Elena, the musician who happened to work as a cleaning lady for a while. There's no shame in that, Elena nodded slowly. My grandmother used to say that music was like water. It always finds a way to flow, even if rocks try to block its path. Your grandmother sounds very wise, Marcus said. She would have loved this, Elena said, looking at the beautiful concert hall around them. She would have said it was God's plan all along. Elena walked back to the piano and sat down again. She played a few notes of the Chopin nocturne she had performed earlier. The music sounded even more beautiful now, filled with hope instead of just sadness. If I do this, Elena said, I want to do it right. I want to practice to prepare properly. I don't want to embarrass myself for you. Marcus felt a rush of excitement. Does that mean yes? Elena took a deep breath. It means I'm willing to try. Marcus wanted to jump up and down with joy, but he controlled himself. Elena, this is going to be incredible. People need to hear your story. They need to hear your music. What would I play? Elena asked. Whatever speaks to your heart, Marcus said. What piece of music means the most to you? Elena thought for a moment. There's a piece by Villa-Lobos, a Brazilian composer. It's called The Little Train of the Caipira. It reminds me of my journey to America. All the stops and starts, the fear and hope, the longing for home. Perfect, Marcus said. We'll build a program around that. Elena smiled for the first time since she had started telling her story. I can't believe I'm doing this. I can't believe I'm lucky enough to be part of it, Marcus said. Elena stood up from the piano and looked around the concert hall one more time. You know, all these years I've been cleaning this place, I never imagined I would actually perform here someday. Maybe you will, Marcus said. If the concert in 3 weeks goes well, who knows what doors might open, Elena laughed. Let's take it one concert at a time. Deal, Marcus said. But Elena, I want you to promise me something. What? No matter what happens, no matter how nervous you get, remember tonight? Remember how it felt to play music again? Remember that you have a gift, and gifts are meant to be shared? Elena nodded. I promise, Marcus extended his hand to Elena. Partners? Elena shook his hand firmly. Partners. As they walked off the stage together, Elena felt something she hadn't felt in 25 years. She felt like a musician again. And for the first time in decades, she felt like anything was possible. The empty concert hall watched them leave, holding the echoes of Elena's music and the promise of more music to come. In 3 weeks, Elena Rodriguez would step back into the world she had been forced to leave behind. But this time she would be ready. 6 months had passed since that magical night at Carnegie Hall. Elena Rodriguez stood in the wings of the same concert hall where she had once mopped floors. But tonight she was here as a performer. The months between Marcus's invitation and this moment had been a whirlwind. After their successful debut at the smaller Merkin Concert Hall, word had spread quickly through the classical music community. Elena's story had captured people's hearts, and her talent had amazed the critics. Elena looked down at her hands. They were the same hands that had cleaned thousands of floors and scrubbed countless toilets. But tonight they wore no rubber gloves. Instead, they were soft and elegant, ready to create magic on the piano keys. She wore a beautiful black evening gown that Marcus had helped her choose. It was simple but elegant, perfect for a pianist. Elena hardly recognized herself in the mirror. For so many years, she had dressed to be invisible. Tonight, she dressed to be seen. 5 minutes until showtime, a stage manager announced. Elena's heart was pounding. In 5 minutes, she would walk onto the stage where she had once worked. As a cleaning lady, she would sit at the same piano she used to dust and polish. But this time, 2,000 people would be watching her, waiting to hear her play. Marcus appeared beside her in the wings. He looked calm and confident in his black tuxedo. Over the past 6 months, he had become more than just her performing partner. He had become her friend, her mentor, and her biggest supporter. How are you feeling? Marcus asked gently. Terrified, Elena admitted, and excited, and grateful. And about 100 other emotions all at once? Marcus smiled. That sounds exactly right for tonight. Elena peeked through the curtain at the audience. Every seat was filled. The program for tonight's concert told Elena's story, how a famous pianist had discovered an extraordinary talent hidden in plain sight. People had come from all over the world to hear the cleaning lady who had become a concert pianist. In the front row, Elena could see her daughter Maria, 23 years old, beautiful and proud, with tears already shining in her eyes. For weeks after Elena had told her the truth about her musical background, Maria had been angry. Angry that her mother had hidden such an important part of herself. But now Maria understood. Her mother had done what she had to do to survive and protect her family. Next to Maria sat Elena's elderly mother, who had flown in from California, where she now lived with Elena's brother. She was 82 years old and frail, but she had insisted on being here tonight. She remembered the little girl who used to walk 2 hours to take piano lessons. She remembered the daughter who had sacrificed everything for her family. Elena, Marcus said softly, before we go out there, I want you to know something. Whatever happens tonight, you've already won. You took the biggest risk of your life by agreeing to perform again. You've already proven that dreams don't have expiration dates. Elena smiled and squeezed Marcus's hand. Thank you for everything, for seeing something in me that I couldn't see in myself. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer's voice boomed over the speakers. Please welcome Marcus Chun and Elena Rodriguez. This was it. The moment Elena had been preparing for, dreaming about, and fearing for 6 months, Marcus walked onto the stage first to thunderous applause. Elena followed, her legs shaking but her head held high. The spotlight was brighter than she remembered, and the applause was louder than anything she had imagined. Elena looked out at the audience as she walked to the piano. 2,000 faces looking back at her with curiosity, excitement, and hope. Some of these people had probably seen her cleaning this very stage over the years. Never knowing they were looking at a trained musician, Elena sat down at the piano bench and adjusted her position. The same bench, the same piano, but everything else was completely different. The last time she had sat here, she was a scared cleaning lady, taking the biggest risk of her life. Tonight she was Elena Rodriguez, concert pianist. The hall fell. Completely silent. Elena placed her hands on the keys and closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about her grandmother, who had taught her that music was God's language. She thought about her father, murdered for no reason except being in the wrong place at the wrong time. She thought about all the years of cleaning floors and dreaming impossible dreams. Then Elena began to play. The piece was Villa-Lobos's The Little Train of the Caipira, the same piece she had mentioned to Marcus that first night. As her fingers found the opening notes, Elena felt all her nervousness disappear. The music took over just like it always had. The piece started slowly, like a train beginning its journey. Elena's left hand provided the steady rhythm of wheels on tracks, while her right hand played the melody that sounded like a train whistle in the distance. The music told the story of a small train traveling through the Brazilian countryside, picking up passengers and hopes and dreams along the way. As Elena played, she felt like she was telling her own story. The slow beginning was her childhood in El Salvador, learning music from her grandmother. The middle section, faster and more complex, was her time at the conservatory, full of excitement and possibility. Then came the dramatic section, loud, chaotic, frightening, representing the war and her family's dangerous journey to America. But the piece didn't end in chaos. It ended with a return to the gentle opening theme, transformed and more beautiful than before. This represented Elena's life now, back where she belonged, but richer for having survived the difficult journey. As Elena played the final notes, the concert hall was absolutely silent. Then the applause began. It started as a few scattered claps, then built into a roar that seemed to shake the building. People jumped to their feet, some were crying, others were shouting, "Bravo!" At the top of their lungs. Elena stood up from the piano bench and curtsied deeply. Tears were streaming down her face, but she was smiling wider than she had smiled in years. Marcus joined her on stage, and they bowed together as the audience continued to cheer. The applause went on for 10 minutes. Elena could see people in the audience wiping their eyes. She could see her daughter and mother in the front row, both crying with joy and pride. She could see the other members of the cleaning crew who had been given special tickets to attend. They were clapping harder than anyone. When the applause finally died down, Elena stepped forward to the microphone that had been set up for her. "Thank you," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. "For 25 years, I thought my musical dreams were over. I thought that part of my life was buried forever. But tonight you have given me the greatest gift possible. You have given me the chance to be myself again." The audience erupted in another round of applause. "I want to thank Marcus Chun," Elena continued, "for having the courage to ask a cleaning lady to play piano, and for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself." Elena looked out at the audience. "But mostly I want to thank all of you for reminding me that it's never too late to chase your dreams. That talent doesn't disappear just because life gets hard. That music really is the universal language that connects all of us." Elena stepped back from the microphone and sat down at the piano again. "I have one more piece I'd like to play for you tonight. This one is for my grandmother, who taught me that music was the one thing that no one could ever take away from me." Elena began to play Chopin's Nocturne in A-flat major, the same piece she had played for Marcus that first night. But this time it sounded different. More confident, more joyful, more alive. This time it sounded like a celebration instead of A lament. As the beautiful melody filled Carnegie Hall, Elena felt complete for the first time in 25 years. She was exactly where she belonged, doing exactly what she was meant to do. The little girl who had walked 2 hours to take piano lessons had finally made it to the biggest stage in the world. When the final note faded away, the standing ovation lasted for 20 minutes. Critics who had heard thousands of concerts said it was one of the most moving performances they had ever witnessed. Not just because of Elena's technical skill, but because of the raw honesty and emotion she brought to every note. After the concert, Elena was surrounded by well-wishers and reporters. Music schools offered her teaching positions. Recording companies wanted to sign her. Concert halls around the world invited her to perform, but the moment Elena treasured most was when her daughter Maria hugged her backstage. "I'm so proud of you, Mama," Maria whispered. "Not just for tonight, but for everything. For all the sacrifices you made, all the dreams you put aside for us. And for finding the courage to dream again." Elena held her daughter tight. "I want you to remember this night," she said. "Remember that it's never too late to become who you're meant to be. Remember that sometimes the longest journeys lead to the most beautiful destinations." As Elena and her family left Carnegie Hall that night, she looked back at the building where she had spent 12 years cleaning floors. The same building where she had just achieved her greatest triumph. Elena Rodriguez had come full circle. The cleaning lady had become a concert pianist. The immigrant who had lost everything had found herself again. And the woman who had thought her dreams were dead had proven that some dreams are too powerful to die. Marcus was right. It had never been too late. It had only been a matter of finding the courage to try. Victoria Ashworth sat in her wheelchair on the big stone terrace. She looked through the huge glass windows at her father's party inside. Rich people in expensive clothes walked around the grand ballroom. They laughed and talked loudly while holding wine glasses. In the center of the room stood a beautiful black piano. It was the biggest and most expensive piano money could buy. Victoria watched as different people took turns playing the piano. Some played classical music, others played popular songs. Everyone seemed so happy and free. They could walk wherever they wanted. They could sit at the piano bench without any help. Victoria felt a sharp pain in her chest, but it was not a physical pain. It was the pain of missing something she once loved more than anything else. 3 years ago, Victoria could play piano better than most of these people. She had been playing since she was 5 years old. Her fingers used to dance across the piano keys like magic. Music flowed from her heart through her hands. She dreamed of becoming a famous pianist one day. She practiced for hours every day, even when her friends wanted to go shopping or to parties. But everything changed 3 years ago. Victoria was 21 then and loved riding horses. She had been riding since she was a child and felt completely safe on horseback. One sunny morning, she went for a ride on her favorite horse, Thunder. Something scared the horse, maybe a snake or a loud noise. Thunder threw Victoria off his back. She hit the ground hard and hurt her spine badly. The doctors told her she would never walk again. Her legs would never work like before. She would need a wheelchair for the rest of her life. Victoria felt like her world had ended. Not only could she not walk, but she also could not sit at a piano the same way. Everything felt different and wrong. Her father, Richard Ashworth, was one of the richest men in the country. He owned many businesses and had more money than most people could imagine. When Victoria got hurt, he used all his money and power to get her the best doctors and treatment. He hired nurses to take care of her 24 hours a day. He bought her the most expensive wheelchair available. He made sure she had everything she could possibly need, but Richard was also very protective of his daughter, maybe too protective. He did not want her to do anything that might hurt her or make her sad. When Victoria's old piano teacher suggested ways she could still play piano, Richard said no. He thought it would only remind Victoria of what she had lost. He believed she needed to rest and stay safe, not try to do things that might be too hard for her. So Victoria spent most of her time alone in the big house. She had her own suite of rooms on the first floor, so she would not need to use stairs. She had a private bathroom, a sitting room, and a bedroom that was bigger than most people's entire homes. Everything was perfect and expensive, but Victoria felt like a bird trapped in a golden cage. The house had dozens of rooms, beautiful gardens, and every luxury possible. But Victoria rarely left her suite except to sit on the terrace like she was doing now. She had nurses and servants who brought her everything she needed. She could buy anything she wanted. But she could not have the one thing she wanted most: to feel useful and normal again. Tonight was her father's annual charity party. Rich people came to donate money to help poor children. It was a good cause, but Victoria knew most people came to see and be seen. They wanted to show off their expensive clothes and jewelry. They wanted to network and make business deals. The charity part was just an excuse for a fancy party. Victoria usually stayed in her room during these parties. She did not like the way people looked at her with pity in their eyes. She hated when they spoke to her in sweet, fake voices like she was a child. Most of all, she could not stand when they told her how brave and inspiring she was just for existing in a wheelchair, but tonight was different. Tonight she could hear the piano music from her room, and it called to her like a siren song. She had to see it, even if it hurt. She had to remember what it felt like to love music. Even if she could never play the same way again, now she sat outside in the cool evening air, watching through the windows. A woman in a red dress was playing a fast, showy piece. She hit the keys hard and moved her hands dramatically. People clapped and cheered when she finished. Next, an old man played a slow, boring song that made half the audience look at their phones. Victoria remembered when she used to play for people. She never played to show off or get attention. She played because she had to, because the music lived inside her and needed to come out. She played pieces that told stories and made people feel things. When she played, people stopped talking and really listened. A tear rolled down Victoria's cheek. She quickly wiped it away before any of the servants saw her crying. Her father had enough to worry about without knowing how sad she was. He already watched her like a hawk, always afraid she might hurt herself or get too upset. The worst part was that Victoria knew her piano was still in the house. It was in the music room that no one used anymore. Richard had offered to get rid of it, thinking it would make things easier for Victoria. But she begged him to keep it. She was not ready to let go completely, even if she could not play it. Sometimes late at night, Victoria would wheel herself to the music room and just sit there in the dark. She would look at the piano and remember the feeling of the keys under her fingers. She would remember the joy of creating something beautiful from nothing, but she never tried to play it. She was too scared that it would feel wrong and ugly now. As Victoria watched the party continue inside, she felt more alone than ever. Everyone looked so alive and happy. They moved with such ease and confidence. They took their abilities for granted, never thinking about how lucky they were to have working legs and no limitations. Victoria closed her eyes and listened to the current piano player. This one was better than the others. The music was soft and emotional, not showy or loud. It reminded her of how she used to play. For just a moment, she let herself imagine she was the one playing. She could almost feel her fingers on the keys and her foot on the pedal. When she opened her eyes, she saw that the sun had completely set. The party would continue for hours, but Victoria felt tired. Not tired in her body, but tired in her soul. She was tired of watching life happen to other people while she sat on the sidelines. She was tired of being treated like a fragile doll. Most of all, she was tired of missing the person she used to be. Victoria turned her wheelchair around and headed back inside. Tomorrow would be another day of the same routine. Breakfast in bed, physical therapy with the nurse, reading books, watching television, and trying not to think about all the things she could not do anymore. But as she went to her room, Victoria could still hear the piano music floating through the house. Despite everything, it still made her heart beat faster. Music was still alive inside her, even if she did not know how to let it out anymore.